There might be another team that makes sense to trade Luis Robert Jr. to, but is this team a good trade partner for the White Sox? Let's discuss on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And also follow or subscribe to the show at wherever you get your podcasts. I know Bleacher Report can sometimes be more about content than hard-hitting journalism or inside information, but the writers do produce topics that are worth discussing. And one of them is a proposal to send Luis Robert Jr. to the Mets, and the other is thinking the Sox had some sneaky good free agent signings. And finally, it's a Top 5 Friday. Let's discuss my 5 concerns I have with Major League Baseball. And from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so I'm still in the camp of the White Sox should roll the dice and keep Luis Robert Jr., through the first half of the season, hope he stays healthy, and then trade him. Because hopefully he will have rebuilt his trade value, and then now you can entertain getting him at 100% return value or even 125 or 150% return value. And as everydayers know, I'm fine with trading him at the deadline because as everydayers have heard me say, and I'll run through it just one more time because I usually always get someone in the YouTube comment community page asking me why does Luis Robert Jr. have to be traded in the first place? But why do the Sox need to trade Luis Robert Jr. at some point? It's because the timeline toward the Sox being competitive no longer matches up with the club control that they'll have over Luis Robert Jr. Scott Boras clients rarely sign extensions. Not when they can get to their basically big money contract deals. And while Luis Robert Jr. obviously got paid, he didn't get paid obviously the $100 million and over rate that he should potentially get if he can stay healthy and he can produce at his 2023 levels. And since 2027 is the earliest potential projection for the Sox being competitive, that's the last year you have of club control of Luis Robert Jr. So it no longer matches up. And as we know, the White Sox rarely retain even their own free agents. So his days are numbered. And also there's a real possibility that he does have another major injury and you lose him for nothing, as it would become just another Yoan Moncada situation. And honestly, that's the likely motivating factor for the front office to still want to deal him before spring training, where again, I say roll the dice. This is the craps table. Maybe you hit snake eyes. Let's roll it again. But I can see them wanting to trade him before the deadline because even though his trade value is at its lowest, it's better to aim for obviously something significant in return than nothing at all. So I get their logic. I just say, let's be bold, folks. I mean, what do you got to lose? And say he does have a significant injury, then maybe you just hope it's just an Eloy Jimenez situation where obviously not ideal to just get a basically veteran minor leaguer reliever, but at least you might get a piece that can help you in the big leagues. So that is, and obviously the White Sox reported request is something significant. They're not asking for a haul like Garrett Crochet. They just want something significant back. So they're willing to settle for pennies on the dollar, but more like dimes and quarters, not pennies. And one team that could use Luis Robert Jr. that has shown they're willing to spend whatever it takes to win, whether it's money or prospects, is the New York Mets. So they might be willing to pay this something significant price. And this is the suggestion from Bleacher Report lead writer Zach Reimer. He's got the Mets make Luis Robert Jr. their latest star. Trade proposal: New York Mets get center fielder Luis Robert Jr. Chicago White Sox get infielder Ronnie Mauricio. I think it's Mauricio. Yeah, Ronnie Mauricio is what the Baseball Reference enunciation guide had. And you might say, Ronnie, that Ronnie Mauricio, that's not enough. But remember, the ask is something significant. And remember, the view of LRJ in the rest of the 29 other teams that's been well reported and well documented, the view of him is he had one great season, but he's always hurt. And remember, availability is the best ability. And also, I'm sure it would be more than just one prospect for one Major League Baseball player who does have an All-Star appearance on his credential. I mean, on his resume. I mean, you're not going to get a top 6 prospect just for Luis Robert Jr. I mean, that'd be organizational malpractice. If you're Chris Getz, you're at least asking for, yes, something significant, but then you're also asking for maybe a couple scratch-off prospects. I would still prefer that they try to get 3 players back for Luis Robert Jr. It's just that is the 3 players, is it just one basically top 30 prospect, and then are you looking at maybe more of the bottom, 50 to 100 ranking, that type of stuff. But I want to discuss first, would the Mets even attempt to trade for LRJ, and then discuss if the Mets even are a good trade partner? And then is Mauricio, it's Mauricio. Again, like somebody got in my head with the Blue Jays comments, and I got to stop reading the comments so much. We got like, you mispronounce every prospect name. Okay, I looked it up that this time, and I believe I've got it right. But and who else might be in the system that they could deal for? So first, would the Mets even be interested? I talked to Tim Boyle. He's the site expert of Fansided's dedicated Mets site, Rising Apple. Told me he would trade for Luis Robert Jr. in a heartbeat, as the Mets have tried to add outfield help this offseason. Even after signing Juan Soto, they tried to go after Teoscar Hernandez. So they are still interested in adding to their outfield. I also checked in with my guy, Greg Prince, at Faith and Fear in Flushing, one of the most respected Mets blogs out there. And he said, yes, the Mets could use an offensive upgrade in center field. Right now, they're going to be going into the season with Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri. Both are really good utility players. But if you're the Mets and you're pretty much going all in after you just signed Juan Soto to a record contract, do you really want to be going in with basically a platoon situation in center field? So it makes sense for the Mets to seek an upgrade. And if team president David Stearns so desires to kind of replicate what he did in Milwaukee in his second year, it was not only getting Christian Yelich that really upgraded the team from 2017 into 2018, but it was also signing Lorenzo Cain, a center fielder. So maybe he could replicate that. Maybe in this case, it's you sign Juan Soto and now you're trading for Luis Robert Jr. But there is a historical trend of the guy running the Mets doing this in his past stop. In terms of a trade value, well, for actual value, because Fangraphs measures farm systems in terms of dollars value, that type of stuff, they have them at number 7. So again, how Fangraphs ranks farm systems is they assign a dollar value to the overall prospect values that they have for each grade of their prospect on that 80 to 20 scale that scouts use. And then they assign a dollar value to those scores. And actually, this is kind of what teams do. As I remember hearing ESPN's Kylie McDaniel say that on the White Sox Talk podcast with Chuck Garfien, that you basically, how you really do trades, and a lot of front offices do, is they take a player, even a major league player, and they actually assign a dollar value, and then they go through the system or the other player's value to see how can they match it up in terms of like dollars. So that's kind of neat. So the Mets have $191 million in value according to Fangraphs. They've got 3 50 FV players. So those are basically, average prospects, but that still means it's good. It's just, the average grade. They have 1 that's 55, which is between average and above average. MLB Pipeline, they haven't updated their rankings yet, but they had the Mets at number 13 in August. They do currently have 5 prospects in their top 100, though. Bleacher Report has the Mets at number 16 in the rankings that they updated on New Year's Eve, including Mauricio as their 5th best prospect, and is rated as a second-tier prospect. That's still a good rating. Like second tier doesn't mean second tier. No, that's still a good rating. ESPN hasn't updated their rankings since August. At the time, Kylie McDaniel rated their system number 16. He assigned a $201 million value because Kylie did used to work in a front office. Always keep forgetting about Baseball Prospectus and the good work they do. And that's my bad. I got to start adding them into that stuff. They have 5 Mets prospects in their top 101 that they literally just updated. Sox, by the way, have 7. They rank the Mets 8th, their system, but they last updated, basically the last that I could see was actually in January of 2024. So they still haven't updated for 2025 yet. So in terms of the proposed return, Mauricio. Okay, Mauricio. Let's stick with that. He does fit the bill as maybe something significant, considering he is the Mets' 5th best prospect According to Bleacher Report, he's number 6 per MLB pipeline. He even got 101 at-bats in the big league with the Mets in 2023. 248, 296, 347 slash line. Here's the problem. He's damaged goods. He tore his ACL in winter ball after 2023. He's missed the entire 2024 season. And there's reports that he might not even be ready for spring training. So that's why he cannot be the significant piece back. You cannot, if you're trading your last real true valuable asset, you can't trade him for basically a damaged player. You just can't. You could, but think about that. One of the things that even I skewered, and I'm not the only one who skewered GM Chris Getz in that failed Eric Fetty, Michael Kopech trade. And okay, the Miguel Vargas bros out there that love to always point out, well, it's not failed yet because Miguel Vargas can still turn things around. Okay, Vargas bros, it's failed right now for basically how Miguel Vargas has struggled mightily. And Alex Robertas, the other prospect that they got, yeah, he had a broken leg. They literally traded 2 of their best assets. One of the returns is a guy that has a broken leg. And I think he may have had a second surgery because I think I saw that on Instagram that he posted another surgery pic. So that little frightening, little scared, but we skewered that because it's like, wait a minute, you gave up these some of your best assets for a guy with a broken leg who may not be able to help you for a while, and like even in the minor leagues. Really, you're leveraging that? So you can't do the same thing in this case. You're trading you're literally going to be trading one of your few projected players to have an F4 over 2. Mauricio cannot be the headliner. But let's just say right off the bat, their top 3 is untouchable for Luis Robert Jr. Because again, even the Mets, I don't see the Mets really giving up their top 3 prospects, even though Steve Cohen's got unlimited money to say, yeah, I don't care about the modern economics of having cheap guys that could potentially hit or prospect for 6-7 years. I'll just go sign another guy, another great free agent that comes available. It's just for Luis Robert Jr., that's a big chance you're taking on because, again, you don't know if he's going to be available. So let's just take the top 3 prospects out. Okay, let's just get them out of there. Carson Benji, he's their 5th rated prospect. They just took him, though, in the 5th round. That's their 5th rated prospect according to MLB Pipeline. And I'm not sure the Mets are so desperate to upgrade the center field position so quickly like the Red Sox did, like how they wanted to upgrade their rotation to get Garrett Crochet, that they were willing to already move on from their 1st round pick in Braden Montgomery. I just don't see that happening. So we got to take him off the board. So that's why. And again, here's my PSA. Remember, Mets fans, if you're listening, my PSA is if you want to get Luis Robert Jr., if you're in that camp that would be like, yeah, that'd be a nice upgrade. We'll roll the dice on him. You still have to give something significant up because why? That is the asking price. And if you don't like what I have to say next, think of it this way. It's a hypothetical. And that's even for the Sox fans, because everybody loses their minds on these types of trades with these prospects. That's the first thing. We don't know what any of these prospects are going to be. You don't know that they're going to be great players. You can love a prospect. I love Rico Nishida. And I hope he makes it to the big leagues, but I'm not going to have this, like, if the Sox had to trade him to get a piece that they need to get him over the top in a year or two, or to become competitive again, I'll drive him to the airport myself. So that's the other thing. B, these are always hypothetical situations we're talking about. And I'm also going to be, the person I'm about to bring out, I'm also using historic reports of players Getz has either gotten back for players or demanded when it comes to players that he deems valuable to the White Sox. And yes, LRJ may have made an all-star. He still has some value because he made an all-star team in 2023. He can still impact the game defensively, and he still comes relatively cheap to the market with $55 million owed, but only 40 of it being in options. So here's the guy that I would say that I would be going for. Power hitting outfielder, first baseman, Ryan Clifford. He's the number 4 prospect in the Mets system, number 87, according to MLB Pipeline in their top 100. Yes, I'm going to fully be aware that his career average in the minors is not great, 245 career, but he hit 18 home runs in AA last season. He has a career 378 OBP and a career 445 slugging percentage, and he hits left-handed. And now you might be thinking, why trade Luis Robert Jr. for possibly the second coming of Gavin Sheets? Well, here's the difference. Clifford fits the team's desire for high on-base percentage guys. He's got the potential to hit for power way, way better than Sheets and Andrew Vaughn. And, it's just the Sox might need to be moving on from Andrew Vaughn. If he continues to be a replacement level player, you could get out from under Andrew Vaughn by non-tendering him after the season, or if it has value, you're going to probably trade him. They're going to probably trade anybody that has value to keep acquiring club control players that haven't had their club control clock started or still have plenty of years left on it. That's what they should be doing right now in this rebuild. So that's the other thing. Well, why do they have to keep trading their guys? It's because they're a terrible team. They have to rebuild the talent and replenish the talent and give themselves as many chances to find foundational players or good supporting players for the next good team, because there should be a next good team, even though, again, the White Sox continue to defy the law of averages. Otherwise, for something significant, well, maybe the Mets could bundle their number 8 through 10 prospects who are pitchers, but at this point, you would like to get a bat back for Luis Robert Jr. I mean, think about it. If you're giving up a bat, you should be getting at least a bat back that could potentially be impactful. So my verdict, the Mets might make more sense as a trade deadline partner to see that, Garrett Crochet, Luis Robert Jr.'s trade value has been reestablished, especially if he's at all-star levels. Then you got a shot to get one of their top 3 prospects at that point. And that's where you can make that run. Or maybe you'll have at least more data on some of their lower ranked but high upside guys, then you can feel more confident to say, well, we'll trade Luis Robert Jr. for, 4 or 5 scratch off type prospects, that type of stuff. And I know I probably embellished there. Well, the Sox supposedly made some sneaky good free agent moves despite barely spending any money this offseason. And let's discuss why next on Locked On White Sox. Ever sign up for that free trial and then forget to cancel before the billing on the subscription kicks in? I know I have, and the next thing I know, my wife and I keep wondering, why are these few extra bucks keep getting drained out of the bank account or charged to the credit card? And hey, every dollar counts in today's economy, and I recommend Rocket Money to help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you're paying for twice. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Find it hard to keep track of, do you still need the subscription, or are you using a certain streaming service like me? And I find it hard to keep track of that all the time. Then use Rocket Money, because it can help make go through those budget sucking items a lot more effective than I can. And I'm all for effective, and hopefully so are you. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms. So make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. I'd appreciate a 5-star review too. I think we're at 4.5. You get some of those haters out there that for some reason just don't like me and want to bash me. I've seen a few of those reviews, and then I see a bunch of reviews that like me. So hey, let's outshout the haters. The cup of haters, that type of stuff. So the Sox might have cut over $60 million in payroll, and they've barely spent any money despite having the worst season of all time in 2024. But they did get props from Bleacher Report's Kerry Miller as having some of his 15 sneaky good offseason moves of the offseason. And this is sort of actually what I've been thinking about the Sox free agent transactions. Obviously they're not wow moves, but none of them have left me being like, why the heck did they sign that guy? Why are they bringing this guy in? They've all just been very sound, prudent decisions. And hey, spending spree would be great coming off 121 season. I've advocated this for that on past shows. But obviously, one, wasn't going to happen with this owner. He's not going to authorize the spending. Why do you think we're in this situation to begin with? 2, better to go with the painful rebuild again, because this is an owner that doesn't authorize the necessary money to add even a core piece anyway. I mean, Manny Machado would have been a core piece had the Sox actually been like, oh, You actually want the $350 million guaranteed? Fine, we'll guarantee you $350 million. No, 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 no. They had to make $100 million of it incentives. And Manny was like, I'll just go sign with the Padres. They're going to give me the money from all of it. I don't have to go earn an additional. I'll just get it all. That type of stuff. And at the time, remember, he was a core piece. 3, you also want to go with just younger players in a rebuild with their careers ahead of them, their club control ahead of them, rather than guys with limited days on their peak performance years and maybe not so much club control. So here's what Miller had to say about the Sox offseason. There's really no secrecy to what the White Sox are doing here. And frankly, we commend them for it. In hopes of landing and eventually flipping for a half-decent prospect or two, this year's version of Direxon Profar or Ben Lively, Chicago has cast a wide net over a bunch of buy low options in this year's pool of free agents. Heck, they probably even outright told these players in the negotiation process that they'll happily ship them to a contender ahead of the trade deadline if they're good enough through the first 4 months to generate some interest. And that's all 5 of the Sox veteran free agent signings round out his top 15. And if you forgot who they are, and I don't blame you, it is a veteran starting pitcher Martin Perez, Bryse Wilson, veteran infielder Josh Rojas, outfielder Mike Tauchman, and Austin Slater. Although good thing Miller didn't pick up on Slater saying he was told by the front office he was the team's top free agent target. That probably would have gotten a little bit of a mocking for the White Sox when, in this instance, the White Sox are getting a pat on the head, getting a pat on the back. Good job, White Sox. He writes that Rojas is the most intriguing of the 5, and that Bryse Wilson could be a great trade chip based on his spot being a spot starter and reliever profile. And signing all of these 5 guys likely would have been applauded on a contender too, as they're great supporting cast players. The problem for the Sox is these guys are going to be featured players in the first half, and that'll be okay as long as they don't have major struggles. That's the thing you got to be rooting for here, fans. We got to make sure you and I better hope like hope those 5 players don't have major struggles where there is no trade value. Because if that's the case, you're stuck with them after the deadline. And all 5 of these guys I want off the roster by the trade deadline. Want them gone. The only one that I might entertain is Bryse Wilson because he's still in his 20s and maybe you could get him to an extension. But otherwise, get all these guys up out of here by July. Because I want to clear the runway. I don't want to have a Chris Flexen situation. And I am fully accepting that they're likely only going to bring lottery ticket prospects or reliever profile pitching prospects, but I'm okay with that. Sox need those guys. How many times, they still have to make up for years and years of drafting high floor, low ceiling guys. And also, I never want to live through the competitive window again, getting slammed, shut so abruptly like what happened with the last competitive window because the Sox front office spent too much of their limited money in the bullpen. Build bullpens through draft, scrap heap signings where the career is revived, and through flipping veterans like Mike Tauchman. It can be done. Well, with legendary broadcaster Bob Uecker passing away yesterday and then reading some of the recent articles about the Sox young TV voice John Triffin not being so great at his job, it got me thinking, man, TV and radio presentations of baseballs just are not what they used to be like when you had Bob Uecker being featured nationally. And then it got me thinking, that's one of my top 5 concerns about baseball that I want to discuss as part of my Top 5 Friday next on Locked On White Sox. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. And I always say, the money lines, the over-unders, and the spreads, they're fun to play. But if you really want to hit it big on FanDuel, they've got great lines for props, parlays, and futures. And whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Also, recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. Hope you have a good weekend. Hope you have some fun weekend plans coming up, especially to all those everydayers. So I don't care if the one troll in our YouTube community says I'm bringing up the Brewers, I've been getting that too recently. And hey, you can have the drinking game. Have fun with that. Remember, I used to cover the Brewers. I'm a diehard Sox fan, and I have covered a few Sox games back in the past when they would play the Brewers, but I've covered that team. Okay. But I don't care because yesterday was a sad day for just baseball in general with Bob Uecker's passing. He was not just Milwaukee's favorite son. He was a favorite son of all of baseball. It was his humor, his passion for the game, and also just being a unique voice. I mean, he had a very fun, unique voice that drew so many fans to him, not only in Milwaukee, but also nationally when he was a featured broadcaster on ABC and NBC. Remember, he was a national celebrity for years and years and years. And it got me thinking, we just lost the last of a generation of unique broadcasters because they're either no longer with us now or they're just retired. I'm talking about guys like Harry Carey, Vin Scully, Jack Buck, and even those that are still living, Hawk Harrelson and Marty Brennaman. They're gone, because those two retired. The other three preceded Bob in death, but they were truly unique personalities with unique sounds. And now baseball is basically Mr. Announcer voice. Hi, welcome to White Sox baseball. Or, hey, here's Baltimore Orioles baseball. We're going to talk like Mr. Announcer voice. And a lot of these guys just taking their job way too seriously of being the voice for an audience of one, the owner. That's the other thing that you're seeing a lot of these baseball broadcasts become more and more for an audience of one, the owner, because the owner wants the team to be portrayed in the most positive light possible, even if that is not the case. And that is one of my critiques of John Triffin. It's okay, folks, to have a critique of John Triffin if you do like him. I know he's appealed to a lot of the fan base because, not a lot, but I know he's appealed to a certain section of the fan base because he goes out to the tailgates, and that I think he should be doing. And I also think John Triffin does a good job of utilizing Steve Stone. You should use him. But one of my critiques on John Triffin, and he got nailed by Jeff Egrist in the Chicago Sun-Times. Listed him as the worst media in his power rankings, media member. He busted out his driver in like 3 sentences or less. You want to call the police to report a murder there. Good Lord. But he is taking the assignment of being the announcer for Jerry Reinsdorf way too seriously. Way too many cringe moments because he is trying to talk to an audience of one and creating like these feuds with local sports talk stations that just aren't even warranted. That type of stuff. That is one of my critiques, and we're starting to get that. And look, I loved, and I still love Jason Benetti's sense of humor and how he is a personality. But my only critique of him too is he's Mr. Booming Announcer voice. We're just losing that distinction when it comes to our radio and television broadcasters. And maybe this could be just me growing up because I grew up with Harry Carey and Hawk Harrelson. And yes, I grew up with Harry Carey post-stroke, but still just unique sounds, unique personalities. Even Steve Stone, one of the reasons why I like Steve Stone, he's just got this unique sounding voice. It's not Mr. Announcer, hey, 2-2, and I'll just go to the Brewers. The people that the Brewers had backing up Bob when he was, when he would not broadcast, he stopped traveling with the team and he was taking a little bit more games off. It sounds like because of health reasons. They had Jeff Levering and Lane Grindle, and half the time I couldn't tell which one was which because they sounded like this. And they're talented broadcasters. Don't get me wrong. They are. It's just everybody's sounding like this today. So how games are presented on TV and even radio is one of my concerns regarding baseball that I want to discuss on today's Top 5 Friday. And first of all, why do radio and TV voices matter? Well, baseball is truly a pastime game. You can come and go as you please, and usually you're not going to miss much. And the person that is sort of there to let you know what is going on and help you literally pass the time as you're watching the game is the PBP and the analyst guys. Those are the guys that are basically filling the time. This isn't like football or basketball where the actual action can fill the time. And you're getting too many owners worried about being presented in the best light that you get these canned broadcast guys. I mean, outside of Len Casper, you just get more and more booming broadcast voice guy. And, or you're going to get these guys that just don't want to take chances to sound unique and different because they don't want to upset their owner. And owners have to stop this broadcast to an audience of one or broadcast favorably. Tell the truth. Or if you want the most positive positive guy, have some authenticity and some passion like it was with Hawk. And honestly, I'll throw my hands up. I know Derek Blasphemy wasn't the biggest fan of Hawk after the whole white flag trade. I just wasn't a fan of him covering for the white flag trade. And I thought he did get a little too homerish and a little too buddy-buddy with Jerry. But everything he said, the one thing you can never take away, love or hate Hawk, he had passion for the White Sox, and it was genuine and it was authentic. He loved that franchise. He loved this team. And it's kind of hard to get with John Triffin because he's trying to do the same thing. It's like it just doesn't feel authentic. And I think that's the other thing. We're losing a lot of authenticity in these broadcasts. And also, give me a better national broadcast. Stop shoving John Smoltz down my throat. He's the fun police, and I don't want the fun police anymore. And if you're going to give someone who still wants to like protect the tradition of the game but know where it's going, give me somebody then like AJ Przinsky, who's at least going to be entertaining, who's at least going to be fun, who's at least going to know that, hey, baseball needs to be great again. My other four concerns in no particular order: baseball is headed for a terrible work stoppage after 2026 when the collective bargaining agreement runs out. It's looking apocalyptic. With the RSN financial model collapsing, I have a feeling this could be, baseball might not be able to recover. It could be worse than the 1994 strike. But blame the owners if this happens, because they're going to take the hardline stance. I won't blame the players, because why give concessions over the owners just saying, well, we're not making enough money. We're not making the money like we used to. I mean, if you have to go back to relying on your gate and merchandise to drive up your profits and even pay the players, put an attractive team on the field then. There's a concept. Take care of the fans and they'll take care of you. However, my other concern, and that is number 3, the players will contribute to the prolonged work stoppage because they're so dug into, well, these owners are rich. They can afford it. I believe it was Ian Happ that really explained it well. I think he was on The Score. I forget where he was, but he explained it well that, these owners have money. They're all rich. And I agree. They're wealthy. But it's a tall ask of any rich person to say, share all your wealth with me. Because that's basically what the players are saying. Well, you have your own personal money. That's not how business works. The business is who should be paying, the business revenue, the business profits, all that should be paying the employees. Anything extra is just because the owner wants to. And I think the players just want the owners to just cover for everything. Who cares if the business is making not as much money? And trust me, these teams are making a ton of money. Even if you draw 10,000 fans, you should still be clearing $500 to $1 million gate when you add up all the ticket prices, add up all the stuff. Okay. Number 2, and can you see this is going? My concerns go back to a potential work stoppage or how the game is being presented. But I really am afraid that this will be like a prolonged 2005 like NHL work stoppage that wipes out an entire season, and now you're going to officially turn in the game into a niche audience sports. That's my concern. Is number 2, that this will, baseball is becoming more and more regional by the day and more like niche by the day. And that's not good for the game. You don't want to be in this place where hockey is, where, yeah, you have a built-in audience, you have a loyal audience, but then there's only so much money. There's only so much access to the games, but my concern is and this goes to my ultimate concern is there's too many owners still acting like this is a portfolio enhancement, in investment, when it should be a vanity investment, and grasping the concept that you own a public trust. There's still too many owners in that case. And that's the reason why we're going to probably have this apocalyptic work stoppage, bloodbath potentially. And you and I, we're currently living in this in terms of Jerry. He's ignoring part 2 of the concept of owning a sports team. Because this is a vanity project for him. This is a vanity investment because he loves baseball. This has always been about baseball for him. He's just not very good at owning a baseball team. And one of the reasons why he's not very good at it is he's never understood the concept of it's a public trust. Okay? Put resources in the organization to produce a winning product that people actually want to see. And I'm not talking about second or third place teams in September because there might be the hope. No. Get me to October. Fans don't want just their tickets to be valuable in September. They want to see October baseball. And it's sad that 121 loss season is what finally has maybe shooken Jerry into thinking, oh, I should invest in things like TrackMan for my international scouts to do other things necessary to be, what franchises do to produce winning teams. That type of stuff. Finally, my main concern is that Rob Manfred is going to bungle the next TV deal where he wants to bundle the regional broadcasts, at least for teams that are on shaky, terrible ground. So basically every team except for like the Dodgers, Yankees, I could see them maybe having an opt-out, but I can see him bungling this because he wants to bundle that into the national TV package. And you and I are going to still get stuck with these stupid local blackout rules for things such as streaming. Because I'm actually hopeful that they, kind of do what the NHL did, where they actually sold their regional, national, like, how you can subscribe to that. They sold it to ESPN Plus, but they still have these stupid blackout rules because you have to protect the outdated RSN model. And I really think the owners still think that they could get the RSN model going again. And it's gone. The grift is over. But even if he bundles it, I still have a feeling he's not strong enough to go to the owners and say, guys, we got to do what the NFL is doing. Okay, because this model is running out, because of the cord cutting, all that stuff, we got to do what the NFL is, and we got to come up with, let's share all the TV money, and then come up with an equitable agreement with the players. And that's the solution right there. Sell the regional games along with the national TV games to a couple of providers like the NFL does. You can do it. You can still even have dedicated broadcasters assigned to the team to build that relationship. Chicago, for example, you'll get your Sox games, you get your Brewers games, that type of stuff. It can be done. The NFL does it every Sunday, and I know the volume's a little bit lower, but it can be done where you can even create, ESPN can create ESPN baseball, for example, and, it can be done. And that's ultimately what needs to be done to avoid an apocalyptic 2026, after an apocalyptic work stoppage that could absolutely destroy baseball. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'll be back on Monday to hopefully finally discuss the topic I keep pushing because, other priority stuff keeps coming up. And that is, I want to discuss MLB.com having the White Sox winning the World Series by 2033. I do want to discuss that. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding the Mets being a trade partner for Luis Robert Jr., the 5 Sox veteran free agent signings being sneaky good, and my top 5 Friday list of my concerns with MLB. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub, or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. Have a great day. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you Monday.